To end extreme poverty.
The generation
most determined
to fight injustice
and inequalities.
The generation that saves the planet.
How it will get done.
For everyone.
Behind. We will live in a world
where nobody
poverty. Where no one
goes hungry.
Where no one
wakes in the morning
asking if there will be food today.
Diseases we know how to cure.
and where proper health care.
We will live in a world
where everyone
goes to school. And education gives us the knowledge
and skills
for a fulfilling life.
We will live in a world where all girls and all women have equal opportunities
to thrive
and be powerful
and safe.
We cannot succeed if half the world is headed back.
We will live in a world
where all people can get clean water
and proper toilets
at home,
at school,
and at work.
We will live in a world where there is sustainable energy for everyone.
Heat, light,
and power for the whole planet.
Without destroying the planet.
We will live in a world where economies prosper.
And new wealth
leads to decent jobs
for everyone.
And we will live in a world
where our industry,
our infrastructure, and our
used to make money, but to make all our lives better.
We will live in a world
where prejudices and extremes of inequality
are defeated
inside our countries
and between different countries.
Where people live in cities and communities
that are safe.
where we replace
what we consume.
Planet where we put back what we take out.
is decisively rolling back the threat of climate
change.
where we restore and protect the life in our oceans and seas.
will restore
And protect
life on land,
The forests,
animals, the earth itself.
with peace between and inside countries.
Where all governments are open
And answer to us for what they do at home and abroad.
And the justice rules.
with everyone equal before the law.
where all countries and we their people
Work together.
partnerships of all kinds
to make these goals a reality.
These are the United Nations global goals
for sustainable development.
Let's get to work.
Let's make it happen.
Okay, an amazing morning to you all, joining us from every part of the country. I believe it's been a wonderful week indeed across your respective locations. And I'm so glad to welcome each and every one of us to the MasterClass session of the SDG Advocate Program. And this morning, we are so blessed to have is also an academia in our midst today, who is going to be taking the next session in line to the activities of SDGs. And this morning, we are blessed to have Dr. Tenigbade Odu. And like I mentioned, she's an environmental, that was what she likes to use, maybe enthusiast, but I always call her an environmental expert. And she's also a lecturer from the Department of Estate Management and Valuation. This morning, we are so glad and delighted to have the class session. Good morning, Dr.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Emmanuel, and thanks for having me again.
All right, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We are so glad to have you on this masterclass session again. And I believe, dear participants, we are all prepared, and you have your jotters, you have your notepads, you have your pen, ready to take notes and further learnings from this module. And she's going to be starting the session now for the next Q&A session. And after the Q&A session, she's also going to address one or two things. Right about now, I would just like to hand over to you, ma'am, to start the session.
Thank you. Thank you once again, Mr. Emmanuel, for having me. It's always an honor to share knowledge on this platform. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. So we'll just run through this quickly so that we'll have enough time for questions. So permit me to share my screen, if that's okay.
Yes, you can do that. Absolutely.
Okay, 1 minute, please. Okay, sorry. Yes. So I'm hoping we can all see the screen.
Yes, we can see it clearly.
All right.
Yes,
All
you
right.
can see.
So today, okay, thank you. So today we'll be talking about renewable energy and green economy. So that's the topic I was given to talk about. If you ask me, I mean, the topic should just be green economy because there's no how we'll talk. Okay. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
you are
everybody.
audible, Doctor.
Okay, yeah. All right. So there's no how we'll talk about green economy and we'll not mention renewable energy because it's such a big topic anyway. So let's just go ahead. All right. So what exactly do we mean by green economy? I don't know how far you've gone or what topics you have treated already, but by now I'm sure that you're all familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals and that they are largely divided into three basic pillars, which are the environmental, the social, and the economic pillar. So a green economy is defined as one that is low carbon, resource efficient, and socially inclusive. Low carbon, resource efficient, and socially inclusive. And if you look at that definition, you find out that it actually covers the three pillars of sustainable development. Low carbon, of course, has to do with the environmental aspect. Resource efficient has to do with the economic aspect, and socially inclusive has to do with the social aspect. So, what exactly is an economy? I'm sure we have an idea of what green is, but what is an economy? An economy is the state of a country or region in terms of production and consumption of goods and services and the supply of money. So, for instance, we say the Nigerian economy is not doing well. The American economy is the biggest economy in the world, things like that. So, the whole activities that include commerce and supply and demand of goods and services and so on, and consumption, what makes up an economy. Then, for clarity's sake, renewable energy. Renewable energy is energy derived from natural sources that are replenished at a higher rate than they are consumed. Okay, so renewable energy means that as we're consuming it, it is being replenished. And as we move ahead, we'll see some examples of renewable energy. So let's look at some quick definitions, especially from the definition of green economy. So I said that it is an economy that is low carbon. So what's a low carbon economy? A low carbon economy or a decarbonized economy is simply an economy based on energy sources that produce low levels of greenhouse gas emission. So remember at the beginning I said that there's no how you talk about a green economy without talking about renewable energy. Okay, I will soon explain what we mean by low levels of greenhouse gas emission, but just let us have in mind that because the truth is you cannot speak about moving an economy, whether it is trade, whether it is commerce, whatever it is, whether it is production and consumption, you can't speak about that without speaking of energy, especially in this heavily industrialized era that we're in. So there's a lot of use of machines, of vehicles, and there's energy that is needed to power all those things. Yes, so how do we now do all that without necessarily emitting so much carbon into the atmosphere? Then resource efficiency means using the Earth's limited resources, emphasis on limited, using the Earth's limited resources in a sustainable manner while minimizing impact on the environment. What a lot of people do not understand is that a lot of the resources that are used, whether it's in manufacturing or even for daily life, are actually limited in supply. Okay, what that means is that your crude oil can actually finish. Your iron can actually finish. So all these resources are limited in supply. So resource efficiency means how do we now use them in a sustainable manner? And I'm sure I want to believe that you have been told the definition of sustainable development, which is development that we do now in such a way that we do not jeopardize future generations from being able to also live their lives. So how do we now use our resources now to the effect that we do not use them up and leave an incoming generation stranded? Then social inclusion. Social inclusion is the process of improving the terms of participation in society, particularly for people who are disadvantaged, through enhancing opportunities, access to resources, voice, and respect for rights. So basically, social inclusion means that whatever we're doing, whether it's for production, whether it's in rendering of services, whether it's the sales of goods, whatever it is we're doing, we have considered that there are various people at various levels with various needs who also have to be catered for. Okay, so a lot of times, for instance, you would see that people come out to advocate for people that live with disabilities, because it's believed that, especially in a country like Nigeria, in many of the decisions taken, they are not taken into consideration. So that is why you would go to a building, a multi-story building, and a lot of times you may not even find a ramp for someone that probably has to use a wheelchair. How is the person supposed to get into that building? Or sometimes you go to buildings and they have staircases that don't have handrails. How is a blind person supposed to walk up that building? Sometimes you go to some buildings, there's no parking space for disabled people, So social inclusion also includes things like women. What provision have you made for women? What provision have you made for children? What provision have you made for people that are considered the minority when taking decisions? So I want to go back to what I said about low carbon. So why do we need a low carbon economy? Why do we need renewable energy? What is the reason that we have to? What is wrong with kind of energy that we are all used to now? All right. So most of the energy that we currently use as used today, whether it's to fuel our cars, whether it's to provide electricity to our buildings, whether it's to power machines, to fly planes, most of the energy that we use today is powered by fossil fuels. Fossil fuels simply means fuels that are produced from resources that are mined from the earth. So fossil fuels are fuels from crude oil, from coal, and things like that. And a large percentage of energy is today, like I said, it's powered by fossil fuels. Now, fossil fuels are found inside the Earth's crust, and they are usually burnt to produce energy. So fossil fuel itself does not produce energy. It's the process of burning the fossil fuel. So, for instance, when you put petrol in your car, there's a kind of combustion that happens that helps your car to move. When you put fuel in your generator, there's a kind of combustion that happens. So it's the burning of fossil fuel that produces energy. And with the burning of fuel, there's a release of carbon into the atmosphere, as you would know from the smoke that comes out from your generators or from your cars and all those kind of things. Now, carbon, along with other elements like methane and even water vapor in some cases, when they are combined, they make what we know as greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases. So greenhouse gases are found in the atmosphere, okay? And I always like to use the illustration of a blanket, So when you're cold, what you do is you carry a blanket and use it to cover your body. So what does the blanket do to you? It traps in the heat, so that you don't feel the cold air. Okay, so when you're under the blanket, sometimes even if you are in an air-conditioned room, it is possible, depending on how thick your blanket is, it is possible for you to sweat in an air-conditioned room. Now, this is exactly what greenhouse gases are. So they are invisible gases that are in the atmosphere, and what they do is that they act as a with blankets and absorb sunlight from the sun, okay? And then they keep that heat in the atmosphere. So the more the greenhouse gases you have in the atmosphere, the hotter the atmosphere is. And that's why you hear us talking about global warming, which leads to climate change. Because there is now more heat that is kept in the atmosphere, it means that this is changing the weather patterns, okay, and causing the various phenomena that we are hearing about in places where, in Antarctica, for instance, we are hearing that the ice caps are now rapidly melting because the atmospheric temperature is now higher. So ice is melting, and when the ice melts, what happens? The water flows into the seas and the ocean. So there's a swelling of the water bodies, and of course, we always say water must always find its way. So as the water bodies are swelling, the water must move into some places, and that's why we have a lot of incidences of flooding across the world. So we see that the environment is connected. You can't look at elements of the environment in isolation. Everything is connected to everything. So one of the things that the United Nations, in 2015, there was a conference in Paris where the nations now all decided that, okay, if we are going to sustain life on Earth, we have to keep atmospheric temperature below. Actually, what they resolved at that meeting was 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Now, pre-industrial levels means I think it's between the 1850s and 1900. That's what they refer to as the pre-industrial levels. So that was about the time when atmospheric temperature started being measured. Okay, so they're saying that we have a target that our atmospheric temperature now must not go beyond 1.5 degrees. Like I said, initially it was 2 degrees, but after a lot of back and forth, it was found out that even 2 degrees is too far. So 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. So let's assume the temperature in pre-industrial levels was X degrees Celsius. As at today, we cannot afford to let atmospheric temperature to go above 1.5 degrees plus X. So everything we're doing, talking about renewable energy, low carbon, decarbonization of the environment and all that, is to make sure that our global temperature does not rise above 1.5 degrees Celsius, above the pre-industrial levels. Now, I have a quick quiz based on what I just said that I would like you to answer. Just give me okay, can you see my screen? Can you see the quiz? Mr. Manuel, can you see the quiz?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So there's I hope you can see, just go to menti.com and put in the number. Can you see the number? There's a code there. Once you put in that code, it will take you to this quiz. Can you see the code?
Yes, it's revealing, and I'm trying to see how or any of the program manager can.
Okay, I can see the code. So go to menti.com and use the code 72967798. Let's do that in 1 minute, please. So when you get there, just answer the question, and then we'll all see how you are answering on the screen. So the question says, how much average global temperature has currently been gained over the pre-industrial level? So I just spoke about pre-industrial levels and how we have to keep the temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius. So what level do you think we are on now? Are we on 1.45 degrees? Are we on 1.06 degrees? Or are we on 0.8 degrees? So you can choose anyone and just submit, and let's see how you answer. I'm yet to see any answers. We're supposed to see the answers live. Oh, okay. Okay, so we'll just wait a few more seconds. Okay, so you can see the live results as we're seeing it. So most people think that we are at the 1.5 degrees Celsius level. Next is the 1.06 degrees Celsius, and then the 0.8 degrees Celsius. All right, so let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so the correct answer is, please hold on. Okay, the correct answer is 1.06 degrees Celsius. So we are currently at about 1.06, so between 1.06 and 1.1 degrees Celsius. So you can see that we have a very, very tiny window. And you know what science is saying is that anything above that, the Earth may not be able to sustain life again. So it's kind of an emergency. It's kind of an emergency. So what exactly are these fossil fuels that we're trying to avoid? As I said before, there are things that are usually extracted. There are energy sources which are generated from resources that are extracted from the Earth's crust. Okay, and this picture here shows some examples of fossil fuel. So we have coal, we have oil, whether it's your petrol, whether it's your diesel, as long as they're generated from we have kerosene, natural gas, and propane. And as like I said, renewable energy energy that can be replenished as they are used. I hope you can hear me. Am I still audible?
Yes, you're audible, man. You're audible.
Okay, so renewable energy is energy that is replenished as they're used. I think the most popular one that everybody is used to right now are the solar energy, which uses photovoltaic solar panels to capture sunlight and convert it into energy through an inverter and stores it in batteries for use. We also have the wind energy. I'm sure we have seen these wind turbines here and there. Then we have geothermal energy, which is energy which is sourced from the heat which is in the earth crust and converted to electricity. We have hydro energy, which is what we all knew growing up in Nigeria. When we talk of the different dams in Nigeria, like Kainji Dam, like Shiroro Dam, that's the kind of electricity we get from there. Then we have biomass. Biomass energy is any energy that is gotten from organic organisms. So whether it's from sports, depending the equivalent to release this energy we're talking about. And then there's the tidal energy. Tidal energy is energy that is inside the water bodies. So instead of the hydro, where there's a dam that is created, what happens is the turbines are located inside the sea. So the waves of the sea, how the water moves, how the force of those waves are used to power turbines that then create energy. So those are just some examples of, or the most common examples of renewable energy. So let's go back to what we were saying about the green economy. Now, why exactly do we need to talk about the green economy? What is wrong with the way we run our economy now? And basically, our major problem is excessive consumption and consumerism. Consumerism is just the tendency to engage in a lifestyle of excessive materialism that revolves around reflexive, wasteful, and conspicuous overconsumption. Now, this generation especially has a habit of consuming or acquiring things that we usually don't need. Okay, whether it is food, whether it is cars, whether it is clothes, whether it is gadgets, people just always feel the need to acquire things, to buy things, to get things. Okay, and that's why you would go to a place to eat, and someone has bought a plate of food and has eaten only half of it, you know. But what we don't know, when people do that, what they think is, after all, it's my money. I did not collect the money to buy the food from. The thing that I want you to take away from this training is you cannot afford to, in the beginning I said the environment is connected. What you do in one place is always affecting something in another place. So you can't afford to look at things in silos, bigger picture. So yes, you bought a plate of food with your money, but have you thought of the fact that it took somebody time and money, to plant or to cultivate or whatever it is, to produce that food, okay? And then he did it for a purpose and has stressed the natural resources, because the space that was used to plant that food could have been used for something else, okay? And then you have wasted the food. So it has gone to waste. That's food that someone else could have eaten, and now they have to find another source. So somehow that thing you are doing is putting an effect on the next person. There's also the problem of, okay, waste. Where do we pour this waste? What's the effect of this waste that we are discarding? What is the effect on the economy? Okay. Because the farmer probably, have wasted whatever resources the government put into the production of that food. So, and that is just food. There's so many other things. When you buy gadgets that you don't use, okay, first of all, there has been a whole process of extraction that you have wasted. If you didn't, because if you don't demand for it, it will not be produced. And if it's not produced, it means that the resources used to produce that thing were not extracted. So we have to look at the picture holistically and see, okay, what are the effects of this thing I'm doing? When you say, after all, I'm paying postpaid bills on my electricity use, therefore I can afford to put on my air conditioner, go to work in the morning and come back so that my room is cool. Whether I use it or not, they will still bill me. But have you thought of the fact that the more electricity you are using, the more emission goes into the environment? So, and I usually say that the effects of climate change, it's a leveler. It does not choose who it wants to affect. It won't say because this person is rich, is this person I want to affect the more, or because this person is rich, I will not affect this person. It affects everybody equally. When flooding comes, flooding doesn't choose which house it wants to go to. Okay. When the wildfires come, it doesn't choose which house it wants to build. So whether we like it or not, we are all part of the problem. Okay. What kind of that we can do very quickly. So please just hold on.
Last year we recycled over 500,000 flip-flops. We are making something which is so beautiful. My name is Francis Mutua. I'm a flip-flop artist. My heart will save the world. More than 3 billion people in the world wear flip-flops. They are dumped and they go into our oceans. flipflops are brought to our shores by the tides of the Indian Ocean. We collect the flipflops, saving life in the sea. We first wash them, do the carving, do some sanding to smoothen it. In one day, we can make 6 to 8 handbags. Over 900 Kenyans are supported by employment and the collection of flipflops. So it's manual, not machine. It's something to be seen. I love my work. I'm proud.
All right. Let me also share the second one. It's also a very short. It's also a very short video.
These pellets are made of sun-dried olive seeds. It's locally known as birin and has become a popular source of fuel among displaced Syrians in the past decade. Abu Said is the supervisor of the birin factory in Idlib province.
Birin is the remains of olive seeds after the olives have been pressed. It's considered eco-friendly because it is composed of olive waste.
Around 40% of the olive harvest is left over after the oil is extracted. That waste is then transformed into solid cakes, ready to be burned.
We use a special machine for birin. We press it with the machine and then we sun-dry it for 15 days. Once it's completely dried, we load it into sacks and offer it to locals and merchants.
According to the United Nations, 9 out of 10 Syrians live in poverty. And as winter draws in, many locals turn to the olive coals due to the high price and scarcity of other fuels. The pellets cost half as much as diesel.
A small family could purchase a ton or ton and a half of birin for about $200 or $230. As for diesel, the family would need to spend between $400 to $500 for heating for just one season.
Before the war, birin was a little-known product, but now it's become essential. For many Syrians, the olive tree is a blessing that provides food, fuel and hope. Taiba Aiden, TRT World.
All right, so what I'm hoping that you get from those two videos is the elements of green economy that we talked about. So remember we said it's an economy that is characterized by low carbon, social inclusion, and resource efficiency. Okay, so resource efficiency and the low carbon in this case is that they are taking waste, which would ordinarily also constitute a problem for the environment, and they have now turn them into a resource. Now, in the case of the bean, which is the fuel that is made out of olive waste, for instance, you see that they are using those things as an alternative to diesel. Okay, diesel is a fossil fuel energy, which also means that diesel is one of the contributors to greenhouse gas. Okay, so somebody has now found a business that will reduce greenhouse gas. And also the cost of extraction is, in fact, as a matter of fact, it's like you're carrying waste, which would have been a problem, and then you are turning it into a new resource. Okay, so there's the carbon, there's the low carbon aspect of it, there's the resource efficiency resource efficiency aspect of it, which means that they are not extracting new resources to create energy. They're creating energy out of waste. And then there's also the social inclusion aspect of it. I hope you were able to understand the social inclusion aspect of it. They were saying that the thing costs about half the price of diesel. So people that wouldn't have been able to heat their houses ordinarily because they cannot afford diesel can now heat their homes for half the price. Okay, so it means that someone has thought about the people at the lower end of the ladder to say, okay, how will these people, I mean, winter is coming, how are these people going to heat their houses? Now, when we go to the other video too, the flip-flop art, the first time I saw that video, I loved it so much because it seems to be solving so many problems at the same time. Okay, so you will find out, I don't know if you have done your so advocacy has talked about life in water and life on land, but we found out that one of the threats to life in water, that is aquatic animals, is plastic. Whatever plastic that we use always somehow has a way of finding its way into the water bodies, where sea life, ingest it, and that's why every now and then you're seeing one turtle washed up to shore, one whale washed up to shore. When they open them up, there's a lot of plastic, straws, all those kind of things in them. So what these guys do is they have people that go and pick up used flip-flops, okay? And that is a form of social inclusion. The kind of people they use are people that maybe would not have had anything to do, would have been struggling to eat. Now they're getting paid to clear these things from the environment. They bring them together. And if you know the prices of those things, if I had to go to the website to check the prices of those finished products are not cheap. They are not cheap at all. I mean, countries come to Kenya to export those things from Kenya to countries in the West. So at the end of the day, it has covered low carbon, it has covered social inclusion, and it has also covered resource efficiency. So, yes. Okay, I want to go back to my slide. All right. So I also have these pictures here, which I wanted to talk about briefly. Now, up here, the floor mats, what I'm trying to show here are the floor mats. There's a company in Ibadan, so that we don't think that those ones are outside Nigeria, nothing is happening in Nigeria. There's a lot happening in Nigeria. Now, there's a company in Ibadan, it's owned by a young lady, and the name of the company is Freetown. And what she does is that she goes around and collects used tires. So, that has also been in recent years, that has also been a problem for us. The used tires littered everywhere around. So she collects these used tires and then she processes them and repurposes them into floor mats. So you see these floor mats that you're seeing, those are some of our products. They're made out of used tires. She munches them. There's a whole process for it. She has a factory. And then she produces these beautiful floor tiles, which are also used in sports centers. Some people even use them as maybe for their compounds, to landscape their compounds. So what in doing this, what has she done? You can see that the element of low carbon has also been covered. Why? Because but sometimes these tires are burnt. Before now, what used to be done is that they will gather everything and they will go and burn them. And the burning of tires also releases carbon into the atmosphere, which is what we don't want. Okay, and that's even apart from the other kind of pollution that happens when they litter the place, And now she has people that actually go around and pick these tires for her. She has people that work at her factory, so that's social inclusion and then resource efficiency as well. And the lower picture is a farm. Whether you like it or not, it's one thing that is difficult to believe is that there's any part of this Lagos where you can actually have a farm, because Lagos land is highly commercialized, but this farm you're seeing is in Lagos. And how does it work? Because of course we cannot afford to have farms like this in Lagos. So what someone has done is to just create a warehouse somewhere where they do hydroponic farming. So they have found a way to do farming without necessarily using up land resources, because land is also very precious, especially because of our population and because we're looking for all the available space for residential purposes. So hydroponics is also a way where, okay, we're saying vegetation, we're having problems with vegetation, we can bring vegetation into the cities. And by bringing vegetation into the cities also helps the atmosphere, because they help us to absorb, plants taking carbon dioxide and they release oxygen. So by bringing, the more plants we have in our environment, the more we are decarbonizing the environment. Okay, so social inclusion it also includes the fact that people who would ordinarily not have had things to do will work in this kind of place. It makes food cheaper and more accessible to people who would not have had access to it, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what exactly can be done? You know, what is supposed to be done before we can say we have a green economy? So to the left of the screen, what we have is this is the approach the United Nations is using to be able to achieve a green economy in countries. So first and foremost is policy, especially because we're in a democratic setting. A lot of things need to ride on policy. Okay, so the things that the government needs to put in place, the people, the legislators have to come up with laws that will actually enable a lot of these things that we talk about. So policy may include things like tax cuts for people that are engaged in green businesses, or it will include things like laws that make life easier for less privileged or the vulnerable people, as we refer to them. Vulnerable people, including people that are living with disabilities, vulnerable people, including people in the rural areas and things like that. Okay, so we need those policies. And to a large extent in Nigeria, to be honest, we don't exactly lack policy. Our problem is implementation. A lot of times the policies are poorly implemented. So because they are poorly implemented, it looks like you don't have the policies. But when you do your research, you find out that there's actually this policy and this policy in place. Okay. Later, I'll be talking about what we can do, to influence those policies. Then economic instruments, everything rides on money, to be honest, especially because we're now saying that we need to do things differently. If you are doing, once you are changing system, there's likely to be another cost, and that cost needs to be borne by somebody. So in many cases, you'll find that, especially now, sustainability is a big topic all over the world. So there are a lot of funds by very big organizations, including the World Bank, the United Nations, the IFC, different bodies, have all sorts of funds that are tailored towards this kind of projects. So another thing you should look out for is, I am training to be an advocate. What are the opportunities for me? Because sometimes you want to do something and then you don't have the funds to. There are actually a lot of funds that you have access to just because you have decided that, okay, you know what, I'm going to push sustainability. So you also have a responsibility to do your research and find out, where can I pay into this thing? And then it also talked about new business models. The two videos I showed, business models that 20 years ago, people would have laughed at. If you had told someone 20 years ago that I want to start making art out of waste, they will look at you as a stupid person. I mean, is it poverty that is your problem? Can you not just go and buy new material? But all that has to change now. And because the business model has changed, it's not like now someone and say, okay, I'll just sit on the internet and place an order for my materials. What it means now is that you must find a group of people that will go and source your materials. Okay, you must mobilize them. So we have to rethink our way of doing things. We have to rethink the way we should. There needs to be a shift in the way we do things, okay, at every level. And then there's capacity building. And that is why SDSN is actually doing a fantastic work in this regard. They consistently and constantly training people on sustainable development goals, training people on how, equipping people on how to go there and be the change. Okay, so that is part of the green economy. So by the right here, just a few, broken down things that we can also look like green financing. I've spoken about how we have access to all sorts of funding from different bodies, incentivizing green promoters, putting high prices on pollution. So people, I usually say that no matter what you say, there are people that will not just care about the environment. They don't care. They don't understand why people are talking about the environment. You cannot tell me to stop doing what I'm doing. The environment has been there since my forefathers. Why is it now that you're telling me to change? So for people like that, there needs to be some kind of price that they pay for polluting. Okay, so you can't be the one that is releasing gas into the environment, and then you are still the one that is paying the lesser tax. No, there has to be a premium that you are paying, so to discourage that act. So we're promoting research and development in climate change subjects, curriculum upgrade to reflect current realities. We need to be honest, in my institution, we've been doing a lot of curriculum upgrade, just to reflect the current realities, just to reflect climate change and all that. But at all levels, not just at tertiary level, which is that climate change and environmental issues or sustainability issues should start being taught even as low as the nursery level, okay, and to increase public awareness on climate issues. Because we know what is going on, because we are privy to this kind of training, you will think that everybody understands climate change. But you'll be surprised that even at top management levels in some places, no, they don't understand. Okay. So we also have that responsibility to create the awareness in every way that we can. So as youth, a lot of those things may look like they are beyond us. What can I do? But some of the things we can do. I said earlier that we influence policy. And how do you influence policy? During the last elections, I was saying that when there was so much back and forth about who should be president, who shouldn't be president, and I said, I think we are channeling our energy in the wrong places. To be honest, if the youth understand how democracy works, they would leave whoever wants to be president and focus on the legislators, because you actually have the power to influence laws and policies, okay, through those people. And it's easier to hold them accountable because they are attached to your constituency. So you can go back home and say, you know what, this guy, we told him to do this thing and he has refused to do it. We should be able to get him out of there. Okay. So you can attend. A lot of times there are some town hall meetings, maybe in your ward, in your local government, you don't attend. Those are the kind of places where you can bring this up. You can write to your legislator, the legislator covering your area, to say, look, I want you to promote this kind of bill, and we'll work with you to see it to conclusion. So you can write opinion pieces, whether in blogs or in newspapers, speak about things that are happening, so that we can create that awareness and we can put it out there. Green innovation is, like I said, climate change is a leveler, and climate change has got everybody thinking. And if you go on the internet, you go on, on YouTube or Google, you see resources of what people are doing. I mean, look at there was another guy, I think he is from Ivory Coast or so, that I saw, who is using coconut shells to create cooking fuel. The video was too long, so I chose not to show that one, but you can go online and check it. And he said he just thought of something new. And in that video, he said, he was showing the process, and he said, I add a secret ingredient, which he did not mention. Okay, so let's, as long as we think, we can actually come up with those ideas of what we can do to create the change that we want to see. Then unlearn, learn, and relearn. That simply means that, like I said, models have to change. The way we do things have to change. You have to put everything in perspective. And the funny thing is, once you understand this thing, it becomes a part of you. You don't even know where you said. I remember buying snacks from a lady some weeks ago, and she packed the snack in a styrofoam pack. And I said to her, but you can actually make paper packs instead of the styrofoam pack, and it will look nicer than this. She must have thought I was giving her a business idea, but in my head, what I'm thinking is, how do we reduce styrofoam? Because those styrofoams are very obnoxious items. So how do we reduce styrofoam packs to something that is more recyclable? Brown paper is very easily degradable, or it's easier to degrade than styrofoam packs. So we need to unlearn the things that we have. This is how we've been doing it. This is how we are taught, and then learn the new models and relearn, because I usually say this has to be one of the longest research subjects around. Okay, so every day we're learning new things. Just when you think you know everything, you get one data and one information that will show you that you still need to read. So we have to continue to learn. And I said, be the change you want to see. Just quickly, I just want to do like a case study of the building sector. Now, when Mr. Emmanuel introduced me, he said, I'm an estate surveyor and valuer. So basically, my work is in the building sector. So this is an example of how the green economy may work, the kind of things you can involve yourself in if you have to work in the building sector. You can decide to say, all I want to be doing is green building research. Like I said, it is sustainability is a young research area. So we can continue to churn out research until we get it right. You can decide to say, you know what, my focus is green building materials. I just want to make sure that every material I'm selling is green or is environmentally sustainable. You can decide to be an architect and say, I want to carve a niche for myself by designing just green buildings. Building material recycling. Okay, buildings are responsible for about 40% of global carbon emissions. So buildings are very energy intensive. So we are constantly looking for ways to reduce the carbon footprint of buildings. And one of the ways is by using recycled building materials. So we say, even when you are designing, when you start designing, design for I've forgotten how we put it now, but design it with the mind that at the end of life of this, we are going to deconstruct it in such a way that the building materials can be reused. Okay, so your own niche that you have carved will be that, okay, collection of building materials and recycling for reuse. Energy efficient appliances, you may say, okay, what I like to do is buying and selling, but I'm going to focus on buying and selling only energy efficient appliances. And there are a lot of that in the market now, energy efficient washing machines, fridges, air conditioners that don't use as much energy as other things. You can become a green building consultant, helping people to design, to get certifications for their buildings and so on. You can decide to become a solar energy technician, or you can just simply be an advocate for a greener built environment. So those are some of the things that we can do. And this is just one sector. So in your own sector, you can go and find out, what can I do to promote a green economy? So I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I'll be taking questions now.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Tenny, for this amazing and engaging session. Really appreciate you, ma. And right about now, we'll be taking some questions, which some of the advocates have already asked their question. Please kindly use your comment section on YouTube to drop your questions for those of us that wants to ask a question. And I'm still going to address this later. That's to the aspect of the platform which you are joining from. There's a question from Zainab. She asked that, does the process of recycling and upcycling not consume energy also? And there's another question from Kani. I think he asked, simply explaining your clear terms, the excessive consumption and consumerism for better understanding.
Okay, I should answer those.
Yes, you can go on with that now.
Okay, so Zainab's question is, does the process of recycling or upcycling not consume energy also? So remember when I said that when you are taking decisions in sustainability matters, when you take decisions, you don't take them in silos. You don't look at one thing and say, okay, I've done a green thing, because sometimes the effect of that thing is even bigger than what you are trying to offset. So we look at it holistically. So you are right. In recycling or upcycling, sometimes you may even be consuming more energy or releasing more carbon into the atmosphere than you are trying to take care of. So that means that the process has to be looked at holistically. Okay, you are doing, when you want to do a business, of course you do a plan. So you look at it and you say, if I decide that I want to reprocess tires or repurpose tires, for instance, how much energy are my machines using? So what you're looking at is, you have to look at the most appropriate and feasible methods, okay, to do it. There's always a way around these things. There's always a method, that is more energy efficient and more that and gives out less carbon. So the basic idea is always look at the process holistically. Otherwise, it just results to some what we call greenwashing. So greenwashing is you are making it look like you're doing something for sustainability, but when we look at it holistically, you are actually not. Okay, so like I said, look at the whole process, look at it together to see what's the effect of what I am doing. And then the next question says simply explain in clear terms the excessive consumption and consumerism for better understanding. Okay, I don't know if you were here when I was saying it, but I said when you acquire things that you don't need, what you are doing is that you are straining the environment because it means that you are creating demand for you are creating more demand for that material. By creating more demand, it means that more of that material has to be produced. And if more of that material has to be produced, it means that more resources have to be extracted to produce it. So you have already, it's a long chain of effects. Okay, more resources are being extracted, more processes are being used, only for you to acquire that thing and not use it. So why acquire it? Okay, so acquire what you need. Why does one person need to have 3 cars if they're going to drive them maybe once in 2 weeks each? Because in producing each of those cars, they've had to extract more materials. In extracting more materials, they've had to stress the environment. Remember that we said that a lot of these resources are limited. So they're extracting the limited resources, and they're probably using high energy intensive methods to extract them. So it means we're going through this stress. Everybody is just paying for your lavish lifestyle that you're not using. So that's what we mean by excessive consumption and consumerism. Buying things, and I use the example of food. Why do you buy a plate of food and then eat half of it and throw the other half away? Why didn't you just buy the much that you could eat? Because in producing that food, the environment has been strained in many regards. So that's what I meant by excessive consumerism.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes,
there is another question from James Oba. He asks that how can we simply measure Nigerian carbon footprints? And measuring Nigerian carbon footprints also asks that we can direct that to individual carbon footprints. Or basically, you can just summarize and share more knowledge in line to carbon footprints.
Okay, so carbon footprint, like you said, you can't, we don't measure carbon footprint as a whole. So carbon footprint of what? Okay, you can measure the carbon footprints of anything. Like I said, I am from the building sector. So when we measure carbon footprint, we use something called the life cycle assessment. So we assess the property or the building, and the process of assessment starts from material extraction. Okay, so for instance, the extraction of limestone for cement. So we take account of the carbon that it takes to extract cement, limestone, to convert it to cement, to transport it to the construction site, and then the building process. And then we'll now take also cognizance of the operation of the building. So if the building is meant to last 50 or 60 years, for instance, the carbon that will be emitted throughout 50 or 60 years, through lighting, through heating, through cooling, through ventilation, we take account of that carbon. And then we also take account of the carbon that will be emitted when the property is finally deconstructed or demolished. So all that put together is what we call the carbon footprint of a building. So you can measure the carbon footprint of a car, of a production line, or something like that. So it's a very technical thing. There are some databases that Nigeria has. I think if you check places like the climate change there's a Nigerian climate change website. I think they have some data where you can get carbon emission statistics. Is that all, Mr. Emmanuel?
Okay, thank you very much for that, for the response, ma. Really appreciate you. And right about now, I just have to give an appreciation on behalf of the Leadership Council of SDSN Nigeria. We sincerely thank you for facilitating the SDG Advocates Program. and really appreciate you for always being present to facilitate this session. And definitely, I know that advocates have already they saw your email address and also your LinkedIn. Should you want to connect with Dr. Tenny and also learn further from her, you are free. I believe they are free to do that, right? I hope they are free to do that. Okay. We sincerely appreciate. Thank you so much for today's session. It means so much to us. Okay, right about now, dear advocates, we are going to be having the peer networking per SDGs, where you get to connect and get to bond with each and every advocate, most especially advocates that are also working in line to the specific SDGs which you are also pioneering solutions on, or which is your major goal of interest. So what we are going to be doing is we are going to be leaving the YouTube platform. We are going to be using the Zoom platform to do that, whereby there's going to be 17 breakout rooms. And once you are going to see SDG 1 to 17, all you just need to do is to join the specific the specific group which you are more interested to network with, and you get to introduce yourself, get to meet each other and get to introduce yourself and get to connect, and mostly discuss on how we can get to accelerate actions towards achieving the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. We love each and every group to document their opinions, you document your points, which is part of what you are going to share with us. This is going to last for exactly 1 hour, and maximum of 1 hour. That's between now until the next 1 hour thereabout. So please kindly join the session. Should in case you have an issue, maybe you can join the breakout room which you are meant to be. The program managers are also going to be on the call to assist you with that. But please, at the top left corner of your screen, you are going to see the breakout room button. So once you click that top left corner of your screen, you see the 17 groups, and you'll be able to click on the specific group which you are meant to be, and you can get to network and connect to each other. All right, see you on the Zoom platform.